Welcome to Dream Machine with me, Alex Matcham, and my colleague Laura Brown.
Hello.
Each episode, we're going to speak to one of our fund managers in order to try to get to know the people behind the portfolios.
That's right. We're going to be asking our investment expert what their favourite drink, packet of crisps or chocolate bar is from our vending machine.
As well as some other questions in order to get to know them a little bit better.
And we should say at this point, this is not a promotion for any of the items talked about on Dream Machine. There is a whole world of snacks out.
Indeed, none of the content of Dream Machine should be considered as financial advice nor nutritional advice. If you are unsure, you should speak to a financial advisor or a nutritionist. So with the disclaimers well and truly done, let's begin. This episode, we're talking to Carl Vine, fund manager on our Asia Pacific investment team. Carl has been with M&G Investments since 2019 and has a particular focus on Japanese equities. Carl, welcome to Dream Machine.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with a bit of context setting, which is kind of asking you about how you felt when you were asked, amongst all the marketing requests we give to you, to do a podcast about your dream vending machine items.
A bit intimidated because I'm not very good at, what's your top 5 books, top 5 songs, top 5 movies. I've got a bit of a sweet tooth. So the idea that I'd have to narrow down to some favourite items was a little bit daunting, but I think we got there.
Oh, sorry, I'm very excited about this list.
Indeed,
to be fair, this is a good one.
Choices ahead. Maybe, Carl, we start with just thinking about how you got into the world of investments and then M&G, because I know your M&G Prudential career started earlier than 2019, but I'd be interested in just your general start in investments and how it came about.
Yeah, it was pretty deliberate, if I'm honest. I remember being at university on my first week at university during Fresher Week. I actually went straight to the careers office. It was empty. So I spent roughly 3 years trying to figure out what I might do with the rest of my life. And I just kept circling around investments because I rightly or wrongly at the time, I think in hindsight rightly, identified that there was kind of an intellectual component to it, that it's a puzzle, right? That the core problem of investing is making decisions under conditions of uncertainty, which I just think is really interesting intellectual topic. So that's really how it happened. I only actually applied for jobs in the investment world and ended up working for the Prudential straight out of university, and have been very happy with that career decision ever since, actually.
And latterly, your focus on Japanese equities, how did that specific interest and an opportunity develop?
It was complete accident, like, a lot of people's careers. The idea of going into investment was absolutely deliberate. The idea of going into Japanese equities was not. When I was at university, I'd spent, part of my degree was looking at the Japanese economy and Japanese politics. So I came to the city with sort of an interest in Japan. And then really just by accident, the first project that was given at the Prudential was to look at Japanese financial market deregulation. So that sort of, that kind of Japan thematic from university carried over. And then it was announced, the company announced, I think in 1998, that it was going to open an office in Japan in 99. And I sort of put my hand up and said, if you need a photocopier or a coffee maker, I'm your man. And so I sort of fell into it, is the honest truth. But it's a fascinating market, and I never got bored, so I just kept doing it. And here we are some years later.
Indeed.
And so that's in many ways kind of a vending machine nirvana, Japan. So perhaps we start the vending machine process proper with your dream drink, please, Carl.
Well, again, I sort of went back and forth on this. I settled on coffee. I had to say coffee. I am quite keen on a good cup of coffee, all different types of coffee.
Not sure if this is one. Let's see.
Well, we'll see.
This is a cup of coffee.
This is a cup of coffee. Yeah. Well, let's do a little test then. Let's have
Indeed. And
you can probably leave that there, I'd say.
You don't have you don't have one go-to coffee though. It's dependent because usually people have their order, but yours it varies. Is that right?
I think it varies. Yeah, depends what sort of mood I'm in. I think it's the provenance of the coffee. So coffee is quite good for your brain. It's caffeine's neuroprotective, and but only if you buy reasonable coffee. Anyway, there's a whole thing about coffee.
I didn't know that.
We
It's
could bore ourselves with.
neuroprotective.
Yeah,
I'm gonna need to-
So
I've only ever seen that spider diagram where it does a web on caffeine and it goes crazy. So it's better for you.
yeah, well, it's interesting. There's a debate about it, and I'm not going to pretend to be the fountain of all knowledge on this topic. I think caffeine. We're going to go into a rabbit hole. I'm sorry.
Just do it.
Caffeine actually reduces blood flow in the brain. So some people say, well, that's probably bad, isn't it? But it's that's not a chronic outcome. It's just an acute moment where that happens. But actually, it's really the impact it has on the neurochemistry in the brain, which makes you feel alert. But anyway, if you don't damage the oils in the coffee during its preparation, then it's those polyphenols that and some of those rich oils that are quite neuroprotective for the brain. Anyway,
For that.
Gosh.
So they
goodness
say.
me.
So yes,
So they
whilst
say.
this one may not be of that
Yeah.
exact
Well,
quality,
I doubt there's many polyphenols in this one, but
can't taste any.
I'm not sure that the coffee machine out there does polyphenols. But anyway,
It might destroy them, but it's all good. So yeah, probably coffee.
excellent.
Yeah, no, I like
Yeah.
that.
And in a Japanese context,
Well,
there's
yes.
plenty of coffee in vending machines in Japan. Even if you're walking up Mount Fuji, there's something like 5 million vending machines in Japan.
5 million.
Yeah, I'm
That's amazing.
somewhere in my brain. I don't think it's the most dense per capita. There may be another country, but anyway, it's up there.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's 5 million.
Up Mount Fuji.
So if you've ever walked to the top, at a few points along the way up the mountainside, there are vending machines.
Machine.
Yeah,
I just
Amazing.
love that.
it kind of kills the mood a little bit, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that's
but-
not quite
yeah.
one you want in
Yeah.
your photo, is it?
No.
And you talked a bit about your sort of developing your career at M&G. I mean, how do you think about, I suppose you're working with a broader team now, think about, teams underneath you. How do you think about career development as a fund manager now?
I think it's probably healthier for people just to think about developing skill sets, and then those skill sets define the career in a way. So I think what we try to encourage in the team is just a lot of curiosity, a lot of tenacity, hard work, ask lots of questions, never be afraid to ask a stupid question. A lot of cliched stuff you'd read in a bunch of self-help books, but actually it's all relatively good advice.
Yeah.
So I think focusing on skill sets and your own human capital development is where career development should start. I think if you continue to grow your human capital over time, I think everything else takes care of itself. Actually, typically, maybe that's a bit of a romantic idea, but that's roughly what I think. Yeah,
It's good.
Yeah.
I love your description of fund management as a creative, or investing as a creative process.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit more about that?
Well, I definitely think it is. I think that there's probably a temptation for outsiders to look at investment and think that it's quite a quantitative endeavor, that it's a bit nerdy. There's a lot of accounting involved, and I just see it completely as a creative process. There are languages. There's a language to investment that one has to learn in order to play that creative game, which includes accounting and certain financial metrics and ratios. But that's all smoke and mirrors. That's like learning French. That's just how you engage with the subject matter. I think ultimately, we are sat on a rock flying through the universe, trying to make sense of some things. And the idea that we've got any kind of model that helps predict anything sensible, given those uncertainties, is a bit silly. So I absolutely see it as a creative process. I also see it as a behavioral one where still today, and who knows in the future, given what's happening to computation, market prices are determined at the margin by humans. And we're tricky, we're tricky things. So I've always been pretty engaged by the idea of we're never going to figure out the answer. Again, we're on a rock flying through the universe, like just forget about it. We're all idiots. So we won't figure out the answer, the holy grail, but actually just asking a different question can unlock an entirely different way of thinking about a topic, or help you identify risks that transform the way you think about the appeal or the apparent appeal of an investment. So I definitely am of the view that some of the best investors have highly creative minds.
I like that. Well, I think it's a solid first choice coffee. Obviously, there's lots of latitude there, so thank you for bringing that to the vending machine. Heading back to your next item.
Okay.
We're on this rock flying through space, but you still have to have a favourite packet of crisps. So what is your choice of crisps?
Yeah. So again, a tough one. I went for Monster Munch. And why did I choose Monster Munch? So first of all, I don't eat many crisps because I can't trust myself around them. So I try to ban them from my life. But if I was to think, to answer the question, I went back to a time in my life where I probably ate too many of them, which was as a kid. Can I open these?
We open them.
We're in trouble now.
I'm not.
And Monster Munch as a kid came up a lot, but it was tough. It could have been KP Skips. It could have, the list goes on. They're crunchy. This is not going to be good on the microphone, is it?
No, it's part of the fun, the noise.
I mean, that's just absolutely brilliant, isn't it?
Full disclosure, this is my favourite bag of crisps as well.
Well, I mean, the excitement when this email came through, Carl.
You've nailed it. This is the jackpot of crisps.
This is good. Yeah, I haven't had some of these for a while.
You're going to go on a crisp binge now, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, these things are just really not good for you, but in the moment, they're just so fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it was an old favourite from childhood, and but to be honest, I'll eat any kind of. I have a low. When it comes to crisps, I have no standards, and I'm prepared to lower them. I will eat any of them.
But you said you had a sweet tooth more than savoury.
Is that a snack tooth?
I'm a bit of both. Of both.
You and I both.
So I quite like toast and Marmite with a bit of jam on top. Oh. I've never seen these in Japan, by the way.
No, they're not. No.
Maybe there's a business opportunity there to import.
I think we could have some of those on the side of Mount Fuji.
Indeed. I think they'd do a roaring trade.
Just for middle-aged Brits who are walking up.
Probably, actually.
Yeah.
You've already talked a little bit there about, some of the things that are interested. What motivates you day to day? What gets you up in the morning, consistently for your job and what you do?
Actually, normally my dog wakes me up, actually. I like what I do. That's it, really. Yeah, I like what I do. I love my team. Feel a huge sense of kind of responsibility to the team. I feel part of something in that sense. We're kind of like a tribe. So I want to perform for them. I think it's a huge responsibility managing money for other people, and that motivates me. When you're outperforming, you sort of worry that you're going to stop outperforming. When you're underperforming, you underperform. You worry that you're never going to outperform again. And so I feel motivated by the results. I've always been sort of goal-oriented individual. Getting up in the morning's never really been an issue. But I think a huge part of that is I enjoy what I do. I think as you get a little bit older, taking care of yourself becomes quite important to maintaining the energy to leap out of bed every morning, which is why we don't have too many months anymore. But I think it comes down to enjoying what I do. Still now, the first thing I do when I wake up is check how the portfolio did overnight. So I'm still, maybe it's an addiction, I don't know, maybe it's not healthy at all.
It's an interesting place, isn't it? Because I suppose like that, you're always aware of your performance on a daily basis. I can have an off day and no one will know. Do you know what I mean? I find that it's an interesting kind of thing to put yourself into, isn't it? As a fund manager life.
Well, there's always the numbers are what they are. I was going to say the numbers don't lie, but actually they do lie, because you can have periods when things are going well when actually you feel like you didn't contribute much to it. Conversely, you could have periods where you're not doing very well and you think you're really working very hard. So, but anyway, over longer periods of time, the numbers do kind of, they kind of speak for themselves. Real-time feedback is a really important part of behavior modification, which I think if you're going to become a better investor is really important, actually. So that's one of the reasons why I check in so frequently on the portfolio. Right. There's no right or wrong about this. Some fund managers don't check in on the performance of their portfolios daily. They just let the portfolio breathe, and there's no judgment for me about that. There's different ways to skin a cat, so to speak. But I like the constant real-time feedback. It's like if I said to you, if you'd only ever driven a car with no speedometer, and I said, right now, go and drive this car at 30 miles an hour, you'd have no context for it, right? if I give you 2 hours in a car with a speedo, you kind of roughly figure out this is 30 miles an hour, roughly. The point is then that feedback, real-time feedback, is really important part of behavior modification. So I like the fact that the portfolio speaks to us. You know, if you listen carefully, it will tell you when you're being an idiot, and vice versa. So,
and through your career, you would have seen a lot of change, in particular, the advent and growth of algorithmic or short-term trading, and the growth of passive and investing in particular. How do you deal with that, or how have you had to evolve the way you operate in that sense? You know, and what do you think the future looks like from that perspective?
I think that in any business, and investment is no exception, I think you have to be really clear about your competitive advantage and what you do in the marketplace compared to everyone else. And I think that in financial markets, the end of financial markets that we've sort of turned into a casino of high velocity short-term trading, that's all algorithmic at this point. Not all, mostly. I still think that there is some runway left where longer term investment decisions, longer term mispricing opportunities are beyond computation. That won't last forever, but that's still, I think, true today, to say that some of the things that we do as humans in terms of mid to long term investment decision making is not easy to replicate in an algorithm. That is catching up quickly. But so anyway, I think I've tried to steer away from, in our investment process, anything that could be easily replicated, whether by humans or computers, and try and build competitive advantage and a moat around those remaining parts. I think we haven't perfected that, but we've certainly made some headway.
Should we return to our next
Indeed.
Our next item, which I think is your dream chocolate bar? Which
Yeah.
again, this sounds like the one that you found the hardest to choose.
I can't even remember. What did I say? I went for the dairy. Yeah, exactly. The dairy milk, the fruit and nut. In the end, this is a little bit self-indulgent. It's actually my mum's favourite.
Okay.
And I just remember as a child having these lovely
Should we just open one of these massive bars?
lovely. That's fine, but can I take that with me?
Yeah,
Of course.
Yeah.
Sunday evenings, these just lovely time with my mum, munching on her favourite chocolate. So it's sort of my favourite chocolate as a consequence. But again, pretpretty low bar on chocolate for me. You know, if it's got a lot of sugar, I'm susceptible.
There is definitely this link with some of these foods to nostalgic connections.
Yeah, true.
You mentioned about, pickled onion Monster Munch as a child, and I think there's a comfort or something there that,
It's just very familiar.
Would you like a piece, Carl?
Sure, why not? Yeah. You're
That's
right,
good,
actually. Are we going to get into Sigmund Freudery about childhood, or just...
No, but I think we had Alex Arujo, and he was talking about the smells and tastes being the most evocative of the senses in terms of feedback and memories, and I think he's got onto something there. I don't know where he got it from, but
I think that's our connection to all of these, right? It's exactly that.
Definitely.
Place in time.
So you mentioned earlier on 5 million vending machines in Japan, an awful lot of vending machines. As the sort of spiritual home of vending machines in Japan, I would have expected maybe a little bit more of a Japanese flavour in your snacks. Can you give us an idea of some of the things you've had out of vending machines in your time in Japan, food or otherwise items, and just if you can remember any, or things you've seen in vending machines that are particularly notable?
Yeah, I quite like... have you ever had Pocky?
Oh, the
little
stick
sticks.
things. With
Yeah,
it, yes.
I mean,
What's a Pocky? What is it?
It's like a biscuit with chocolate on it.
It's
Or
like
a
a
flavour.
with
A flavour
different flavours
on.
on.
Yeah.
And definitely there's been the occasional time on a train station platform where I've indulged. Otherwise, I may have bought a beer from time to time in a vending machine.
That's a good one.
I used to, when I lived in Japan, I would, on a Friday, a group of friends would go up to the mountains and ski during ski season, and we'd pile onto the Shinkansen and grab a beer and you can get hot food. You can get a hot meal from a vending machine. Yeah, so you'd get a beer and a curry from the vending machine.
And it was all right? It was...
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So
That's very cool.
I like the idea.
But there's all manner of things you can buy in vending machines in Japan. But yeah, I think the Japanese confectionery is nice, but as we said earlier, there's just a lot of childhood history with some of these things that are in front of us right now that trumps that.
On the topic of the future of investment markets, how do you see things evolving from this point onwards?
Yeah, I think we should expect that everything is going to be different from what we could forecast anyway. That's the history of things, is that we're not very good at forecasting the future. I think that when I think about investment firms, I think what excites me about potential changes that lie ahead and how we might meet them head on, I think investment firms need to move away from some of the rules of thumb that have defined them in the past. So our world is built around equities and bonds and high yield and high grade and private equity and early stage and late stage. And we've created these convenient buckets, convenient from a product perspective and a selling perspective, and to some extent from a client perspective. As the world is changing, though, as it's evolving, as companies can go from one customer to 1 billion customers in a month, which is something we haven't seen in history, I somehow sense that those traditional silos are not best served for the companies involved. Mm-hmm. And I think that investment businesses, the best investment businesses, are those that serve companies, that add value to companies. And one thing that we're working very hard on in our business is to be seen as the shareholder of choice, which is we can provide you with patient long-term capital, but actually we can add value beyond capital. And I think it's a shame that in active management, and I'll just talk for equities because that's what I know best. I think in public equities, we've had this race to the bottom. There's been fee compression. We're competing against passive and ETFs. And somewhere in that, I think we've forgotten that we're allowed to try and add value to companies. And in my experience, for looking at any business, if you can add value, you can charge for it. And there's no reason why it's private equity firms that hustle for the companies that they're invested in only. We can and should be doing that. And we are evolving a practice around that, which is how can we help these companies become better versions of themselves? Now, as you attempt to do that, and as you look at investment through that lens, these barriers between these different silos, these different product classifications, they kind of melt away. And I think that's a good thing. So what I would love to see, let's just say in our business, but definitely in the industry at large, I'd like to see our human capital, the way we arrange it, the way we think about products, the way we build investment returns, evolve in a way that I think better suits the economy that we face. When you can go from, as I said, one client to 1 billion in a month, which is not typical, but I'm just trying to make the point. The idea of early and late stage investing just kind of collapses, right? So I think what excites me, back to that earlier question, drives me to get out of bed every day is I think we can evolve our investment mousetrap to include all stages of evolution for a company. Now, one team alone can't do that, but if we can build an organization that is much more fluid within itself, I think we've got a much better chance of creating intelligence and know-how to provide that value added to the companies that we invest in. So I think that's quite exciting. So whatever happens in the future, whether it's high inflation, low growth, who knows? We'll leave that to other people to predict. But I think if we can evolve our mousetrap to find value between these silos, to get back to adding value as active managers to the companies we invest in, then I think our right to exist will be that much stronger.
Should we wrap up with our review playback? I think, Alex, if you
Indeed.
play back the...
Thank you very much, Carl, for your... all that remains for me is to play back your options. So as a drink, we have coffee, no particular style of coffee, but ideally full of polyphenols.
Polyphenols, yeah.
Polyphenols. I'm saying that wrong. There you go. Crisps, pickled onion Monster Munch, an absolute worldie of a choice for crisps.
Thank you.
And then dairy milk, fruit and nut to take you back your time with your mother.
Yeah.
So that feels like a really good vending machine.
Top class.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Appreciate it.